The We Knew the Moon podcast is now the official podcast of the Goddess Temple Twickenham. Find out more on their website, www.goddesstempletwickenham.org, or find the Goddess Temple Twickenham on Facebook and Instagram. You're listening to We Knew the Moon with Dee Safier, an empath who started a podcast to explore the universe, spirituality, and all things witchy woo-woo. Don't forget to check out the website wenewthemoon.co.uk for all your I do what I want and the moon made me do it merch, whichever excuse you prefer to use for all of your life choices. Hi everyone, this is Dee from We Knew the Moon, and I am joined by Michelle Alderson again. Hello, Michelle.
Hello, Dee.
Michelle is from Heartfelt Illustrations, and all of her drawings are so cute, so amazing. You can literally turn your hand to anything I have ever asked you, you've been able to do. So that's pretty cool. From political flyers to murderous witches to puppies, you can do it all.
Custom Dee.
You are absolutely amazing. And before you think that an illustrator is not for you because it's outside of your price range, I recommend having a little look at some of Michelle's prices, because for what you get, they are just so ridiculously reasonable. I mean, Michelle, do you want to tell us how much it costs to do a custom hand-drawn logo?
Hand-drawn logos start at £34.99.
Which is amazing. That's a takeaway.
That's the basic one, but yes. I think it's reasonable, I think.
Oh, it's super reasonable. So to get business launched and get that branding and to have it really suited to you.
And I love a challenge. Can I just say, Dee, I love a challenge. So I like being asked to draw something completely different, which I do get.
Me and my friends who all use you now because you're just so amazing. I think we've thrown you some curveballs and you've always risen to the occasions. Yeah. And again, I use you for a bunch of my other contracts, which are totally different, different charities with different focuses. And
yeah, love those as well.
Workbooks, flyers, banners for Facebook, images for websites, all kinds of stuff.
I'm blushing up now, Dee.
I know, but you should do, because you're amazing. Your details are in the show notes. Even if you don't need an illustrator at all, but you just want to see some super cute drawings, then have a little look at our socials. Right. So I'm really excited because I've got you for 2 episodes.
Yes.
Yeah. And you, as again, per usual, you don't know what my subject is that I'm presenting to you. But Today I'm going to be talking to you about something that has come up in almost every one of the episodes. And so I thought it warrants its own episode. And that you were like the perfect person to cover this with, because I'm sure you have your own thoughts and ideas on it. But I wanted to talk about intuition.
Intuition.
Right.
Wow.
It kept on coming up in like our episodes on psychics, for example, and on empaths and on witchcraft. Like how much is someone just being super intuitive?
Right.
And how much of it is like some next level magic going on? And what exactly is intuition? What does that even really mean?
Oh, that's fascinating.
Right? And like, what do different cultures, religions, etc., think of when they talk about intuition? Well, how do they describe it? The history of it, the history of the study of it. How much is it linked to common sense?
And what is that anyway?
Yeah. And what is common sense? Is it that common?
Yeah.
And then I'm going to go on to some stuff that gets, I want to say, somehow scientific and woo-woo at the same time. What is intuition? What do you think of when I say intuition?
Gut feeling.
Yeah, that's a common one. Gut instinct.
Yeah, when you just think you might know something, but you don't know why.
That's exactly it. Knowing something without actually learning it or using logic or reason to deduce it. So something you just either instinctually know rather than something that you've consciously reasoned out, if that makes sense. And across different cultures, religions, generations, there's loads of different beliefs as to what these feelings are. And again, it's quite often called your gut instinct, your gut feeling, a hunch, lots of different terms.
And people accept it, don't they? They say, I just had a hunch.
Yeah. So I wanted to look, first of all, at the psychology behind instinct and intuitions. Freud, who we have largely disproven of almost everything that came out of his mouth and in his publications, He rejected any sense of intuition. He believed that knowledge could only be attained through intellectual assessment of observations. Carl Jung, though, who is perhaps my one true love, he was my one true love until I fell in love a little bit with Pythagoras in a recent episode. Oh, I hope Carl Jung isn't the jealous type. He was a lot more open-minded. He published a lot of stuff that I agree with more, let's say. And he talked a lot about shadow work and the importance of it, looking at the dark side of your nature and your personality, addressing it rather than suppressing it.
Yeah.
Incorporating it and into your persona rather than trying to deny it and having it come out in unhealthy ways. And he talked a lot about like personality archetypes, how there's 12 personality archetypes that you can quite easily fall into and define a lot of people by. And obviously it's much more complicated than that, but it's a really interesting starting point. But he thought that we had two things. We had thinking and we had feeling.
I agree.
Right?
I think I agree, yeah.
And that they're both rational functions. And then intuition is an irrational function, i.e., it's not based on the rational. We haven't come to a rational conclusion to define it. It's just come to us. Therefore, it's irrational. So a slightly different definition of the word irrational to how we use it now. Like, oh, you're being irrational, you're being hysterical, you're being crazy. It's not that. It means that we just haven't used rational thought to deduce these feelings. He called it intuition, perception via the unconscious. So subconsciously, maybe we're picking up on clues in our environment or on in someone's behavior. And that's how we're coming to these conclusions that are what we think of as intuition. Sense perception could be a starting point for bringing forth ideas, images, solutions, etc., but that it's mostly an unconscious process. So people who are intuitive operate based on rational judgment, but also on an intense level of perception. And again, this is why it came up in the psychic episode, because our psychic's just super intuitive. Do they pick up on your reactions, on your body language, on your small little facial movements or whatever that other people aren't that trained to do? And that's how they come to these different conclusions.
And some people are better at it than others anyway, aren't they, on a general scale? And we call that empathy.
Yeah, exactly. This is why I'm so fascinated by this topic of intuition, is that there's such a gray area between intuition, instinct, thought, knowledge, psychic ability, empath abilities. So people that are intuitive, they use their rational judgment, their thinking and their feeling, but they also have just such a higher level of perception using their senses that they are collecting far more information than other people about their environment, about the person in front of them, et cetera, et cetera. So they end up knowing more about that person or the environment.
And they may not be aware of how they're finding that information.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So Jung divided intuitive types into extroverts and introverts. Extrovert intuitive types are likely to be entrepreneurs, cultural revolutionaries. I know they sound fun too, right?
Yeah.
This is because perhaps they don't mind being out there, speaking in public, being in crowds, et cetera, but they have this intuition that enables them to provide stuff that the public want. So entrepreneurs will have really good business ideas because they get a better understanding of what is needed, where the niches are, where there's a niche in the market and so forth. Cultural revolutionaries will get what the people are feeling and what they need and how to motivate them.
So they can read the room, basically.
Basically, exactly, reading the room. And that is the perfect phrase relating to intuition and instinct. Introverted intuitive people are likely to be things like mystics, prophets. So I thought that was really interesting. Instinct and intuition are often confused. I've already used them interchangeably many times. Instinct is more dependent on past knowledge and experience. For example, if you have a lot of experience raising children, you have better instincts on raising children and about what to do in different situations with them. So I thought that was key, whereas intuition is not to do with your past experiences. It's just what you're picking up or what you're assessing.
You've done it that many times that it becomes instinctual.
Yeah.
So it's like
exactly.
your brain has stopped having to consciously think, but you've done it that many times that you just do it.
It becomes automatic. Exactly.
Yes.
Like you have kids, they're grown now, but
Yeah.
if you were looking after a child, you would have much better instincts than I do, who has only really like babysat my niece and nephew and some other kid. You would probably be able to sense their moods better. You'd probably be able to think of what to do with them better. If they were having some kind of tantrum, you probably know how to handle that better because you have those instincts because of your past experiences. Yeah. Intuition, I found this so cool. Intuition was studied at Yale as early as the 1970s. It's not that early, but you know. So some subjects were asked to read nonverbal facial cues, and then they were told the emotions that those people were feeling. So they were shown a face and asked, what emotion is this person feeling? In a similar study, highly intuitive subjects made decisions really quickly, but could not explain the rationale behind the decisions they made. But their level of accuracy, however, did not differ from non-intuitive types. I don't understand that. So you have highly intuitive people and not non-intuitive people, all put in a situation where they have to make decisions, but the highly intuitive ones made the decisions really quickly.
Right.
Yeah, they just went with their gut feeling, let's say.
Yes.
Whereas the non-intuitive types, the ones that don't use their intuition, took longer to come to that decision because they were thinking it through and using their rational brain. But the end result was the same. Their level of accuracy in these results were similar. So then I wanted to look into like philosophy and religion and how they explain intuition, because this is my sweet spot when something comes up in different religions and cultures across the world.
I like things that connect across and a light comes on.
Yeah. And it's like, wow, well, it must be a thing if everyone's trying to understand it, right?
Yeah.
So in Hinduism, there's lots of different beliefs about intuition, but the common belief is that intuition increases with age and as you get closer to spiritual enlightenment. So it kind of sounds a little bit like what I just described, instinct, that you get as you have more experience, it gets sharpened.
The more life experience you have, the better your intuition.
Yeah. In Zen Buddhism, intuition is a mental state between the universal mind and the individual mind. Which again, I think it's Jung who has like the collective brain. He thinks that there is this collective pool of knowledge that we all tap into, that we all have. Yeah. And again, that's also come up in like the Akashic records. So yeah, it's Zen Buddhism following a similar idea that this is something that we can all kind of tap into. In ancient Western philosophy, for example, in ancient Greek, early mentions of intuition pop up in the writings of Plato in his book Republic. He claims that intuition is the fundamental capacity of human reason to comprehend the true nature of reality. That's like a typical philosopher's description where you're like, what? I don't get it.
Is this a good time to tell you I did my degree in philosophy, Dee?
Is it? Can you tell me what that sentence even means?
Plato was famous for his riddles and playing with words. He was excellent at playing with words. And so if he could use, a
20 million.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not sure I understand what he meant, but I think I would take from that he's talking about this rational learning again, that you do something so many times that it becomes part of your being. I'd love to ask him.
But the important thing is that even in Plato's time, he's thinking about what intuition is, even if we don't understand what he said. The next line in my notes, this is getting too deep for me. I was never good at philosophy. In Plato's other works, he confused us further. His other works, Meno and Phaedo, he describes intuition as a pre-existing knowledge residing in the soul of eternity. And the phenomenon by which one becomes conscious of pre-existing knowledge. So again, it's this idea of a collective knowledge that we can all tap into.
Yeah.
In Islam, intuition is called hadas. So they've got a name for it. Having intuitive knowledge is linked to prophethood, which is kind of what Carl Jung was talking about. If you're like, in particular, an introverted intuitive,
closer to spirituality.
yeah, you're more likely to be a mystic or a prophet. And in Islam, intuition is described as knowledge obtained without intentionally acquiring it.
Right.
So it's seeping in.
That's an interesting take on it, isn't it?
Yeah. So either coming in through our senses or coming in through this universal knowledge that we are somehow tapped into. So basically, people thought that it was mystical, or it was a knowledge you gained from the senses, or some kind of universal knowledge, collective consciousness. That was the term that Jung used for it, collective consciousness that you were born with. So then this kind of led me on to common sense.
Yeah.
So I was like, is that intuition? Is that instinct? Some people have it and some people definitely don't have it. So,
True.
you know,
True.
Same as with instincts and intuition.
Yeah.
So I looked at the definitions, right? Common sense is sound and prudent judgment based on a simple perception of the situation or facts.
That most people share.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I kind of feel like that makes it sound more like what we described instinct as.
Yeah.
You know, like using your judgment, which usually comes from past experiences and knowledge, making decisions based on that. Whereas intuition is a feeling that guides a person to act in a certain way without fully understanding why. You just know you have to do this. But if someone said, why have you made that decision?
Yeah.
You'd be like, I don't know. I just felt like it. Can you think of a time where you've used your intuition?
Yeah, I would say just being a parent, sometimes you get these, what I would call gut feelings.
Yeah.
And you just think, no, actually, I don't think that is a good idea. But not because it seemingly appears to be dangerous, but just because, no. You can't say why. You just,
I'm not comfortable with that.
Yeah, I'm not comfortable with that. And then if someone says, well, what's your reason? Well, I ain't got one. I just don't feel comfortable with that. So the answer is no. If people say, oh, I just got a bad feeling about it, and they may have been in a room with somebody who they've picked up on these little micro movements, but they can't pinpoint anything particular.
When you think that someone's got like a bad vibe to them, or you get a good feeling around someone, you know, it could be multiple different reactions that you have, and you might not be able to explain why you think that at all. Why do I think someone's a good person if I've just met them? I don't know. They could have just come from killing their mother. Who knows? But
I think we can tell, don't you?
Exactly. But sometimes you just pick up on things, and maybe that person just comes across as open and honest, and that's why you've picked up a good vibe or whatever. Yeah. You know, if you're listening, try to play a little bit of intuition game and see what you pick up on about people, you know, think of their little backstory. And I think that intuition is also something that gets better with practice, in that you got to practice listening to it more. Maybe you get better at listening to it.
Yeah. Right? Letting it go. So relaxing your rational brain to let the intuition
and see what you're picking up from people, you know. Like, for example, when you're talking to someone, paying less attention to what they're saying and more to what the energy they're giving off is, you know, because sometimes they are contradictory, aren't they?
They are.
You might have someone telling you, I'm fine, but really they're fucking falling apart.
Well, you know when people are not fine, even when they say they are, don't you?
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so I went down a little bit of a rabbit hole then with common sense.
Yeah.
Because one thing we know about it is that it's not that common. And what does it actually mean? And why do some people have it and some people have like a very noticeable absence of it? And why do those people end up in government? Okay, so common sense is sound, practical judgment concerning everyday matters, or basic ability to perceive, understand, and judge in a manner that is shared by, i.e., common to nearly all people. The common part of common sense is this idea that this is how everyone would make that judgment and how everyone would act in that kind of situation and what anyone would do. So, for example, if a guy pulls up to you in a creepy white van and says, oh, I've got puppies in the back, do you want to have a look? Common sense would dictate that you say, fuck no, and run away, right?
Yes.
But we know that there are many examples of people who would look at the puppies. I would be tempted for a second until be like, could get murdered, could see puppies, you know? You'd weigh it up.
Yeah. And is it that some people, when you say we haven't got common sense, that perhaps they haven't learnt the experiences as life has gone on? They haven't internalized them.
Is it like instinct?
Yes.
Like we talked before, something that you get from more experience,
yes.
Life experience.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like it is. Sound practical judgment. Judgment to me feels like you're using your rational brain, meaning your learned experiences and learned knowledge.
But you may not have ever been inside a van and been murdered before the van comes along. So it can't be learned as in your experience of it. It must be that you've got to learn from other people's experiences or things that you've seen or heard or
is it a combination of that as well as your gut instinct? Exactly.
Yeah.
I don't feel like the two are mutually exclusive for sure.
No,
you know, if you've got common sense and intuition, then that's great, right?
Curious, isn't it?
Well, you'll like this one with your background in Greek philosophy. Aristotle was the first person known to have discussed this idea of common sense and described it as the ability with which animals, including humans, process sense perceptions, memories, and imagination.
Right.
In order to reach many types of basic judgments. So basically, in his idea, only in his belief, only humans have reasoned thinking. But animals, all animals will have common sense.
I don't agree with that.
No, I don't agree with it necessarily either. Maybe if you use his definitions, I don't know. No, I don't agree.
It's a difficult one, isn't it? That's an arrogance of humanity again. And if you've got any animal that lives with you, like yourself, you've got many, and I've got a dog, you know that they're so similar to yourself.
Yeah.
They definitely make decisions and they definitely think about what they're going to do before they do it. For
sure. And they know how to manipulate.
So, yeah.
So, but his idea is that all animals, including humans, have common sense, but then humans on top of that have like rational, logical brain. That makes me think that he's describing instinct again.
Yeah.
As common sense. Then we get into a lot of philosophers again, Marcus Aurelius, Descartes, Kant, and I can't, because you know you're in trouble when you can't even follow a Wikipedia page on the topic. And this is where I got into, where I was just like, I don't understand these words. So I moved away from philosophy because it just got too deep for me. It was hurting my brain and they were far too intellectual, but also a little bit too fluffy for me.
I think it's hard to wade through a lot of it, isn't it? Descartes, his most famous line is, I think, therefore I am.
Yeah.
So basically would imply that he's a rationalist and he's just saying that we exist because we think. And it is a circular argument, which again would not be intuition, would it? It would be the rational, logical side of ourselves.
Yeah, exactly. What does he mean by thinking?
Exactly. I think you think with a range of things. I don't think we just think with our brain. I think we think with our bodies. We think with definitely. Well, this gut thing is strange. I'm pointing to my stomach here when I'm saying it, but exactly. I think we
all know what that means, right?
Yeah.
I can't imagine people not believing that there's something, not believing in intuition. Maybe that's me being naive, but I just feel like most of us would have experienced something where, if questioned, we don't know why we think something's good or something's bad, or a situation is good or bad, or why we get a bad feeling about someone or a really good feeling about someone.
Yeah, I agree.
And again, I just found it really interesting looking into whether what people thought about that, is that from past experiences, is that learned, is that paranoia, is that some kind of collective consciousness that we all have,
or hyperperception,
or being just super perceptive and not fully understanding yourself. All these it's happening so fast and it's such a micro level that we don't even realize we're doing it, or what they are. But then I moved on to something that does get a little bit more woo-woo, and that is the third eye. Because in the spiritual world, using your third eye is meant to be your perceptive, intuitive self, right? So that is where we think our intuition lies, or what we use for our intuition. So third eye is also known as the mind's eye, the inner eye. And it's believed to be, if you're thinking of like chakras and so forth, it's believed to be on the forehead between the eyebrows. And it is meant to provide perception beyond ordinary sight. And that's why I linked it to the subject of intuition, because it's not just what you're seeing with your eyes.
It's what you're seeing with your,
with your inner eye, with your mind's eye. But again, what does that mean? That you're using like rationale and logic at the same time as your sense perception? Is using your third eye, combining all of them into one sort of like super sight and super perception? Do we get our intuition from our third eye? And loads of cultures and religions, again, have this belief about the third eye. For example, it's one of the chakras. Chakras having their roots in Indian spiritual traditions. The chakra, the third eye chakra, is the one that leads you to higher consciousness and helps you achieve enlightenment, which is also associated with clairvoyance. So being able to see and understand more than your average person, and an ability to observe chakras and auras around other people.
Which might be the energy that somebody is, giving off so that you can.
Exactly. So maybe whereas like I can sense if someone is struggling with themselves at some point, maybe someone else with more of a belief in training and knowledge of the chakras will be able to identify, oh, this person is like blocked in the root chakra or something. In Hinduism and Buddhism, the third eye represents enlightenment achieved through meditation, particularly. In many Chinese religious beliefs, such as Taoism, the third eye is developed through Qigong and through Qigong poses, which is, this, like, I'm doing it now for you.
Is it like Tai Chi?
Like Tai Chi, exactly. Yeah. It allows you to tune into vibrations of the universe and achieve a more advanced meditative state, which sounds amazing. I want to try some Qigong. Does. And then I wanted, we talked about my menagerie, but my bearded dragon, Captain Sam Holes, he actually has a third eye. Bearded dragons have a third eye on top of their head, which you can just about make out, which they use to sense temperature and light. So again, a heightened state of consciousness and a different kind of awareness and sense perception.
Gosh.
I know, it's so cute. I'll take a picture of it for you one day. There's an ancient belief that humans actually had a third eye in the back of their head. So it's thought that this sunk into the skull and is now known as the pineal gland, located between both hemispheres of the brain. So imagine the back of the head, right in the middle, there is your third eye, which has supposedly sunk into the skull and is now called a pineal gland. Now, some of you might have seen stuff on social media and this, that, and the other about your pineal gland. I have to admit that sometimes, I'm sorry, I'm going to laugh because the immature part of me can't even say the word pineal gland.
Without thinking of the other word.
Both pineal and gland make me laugh. So apologies if my inner child is coming out. Yeah, so you might have seen some stuff about pineal glands on Facebook and in spiritual groups, but it is actually a real part of the brain. So this is what I meant at the top of the show, where I said this is where it gets a little bit more sciencey, because we're actually talking about something in the brain.
It's actually there.
But in a totally spiritual woo-woo context. And, we already know that we don't know very much about the brain's function at all.
No.
It is like, I think we know more about space than the human brains. There's still a world of discoveries for us to find out about yet. And the brain, the human brain, and what it does and how it does it is still something that we know so little about. So with that in mind, I want to talk to you about the pineal gland. There's a lot of debate about what it is, where it came from, what it is used for now, because we do have body parts, right, that are no longer necessary, the appendix and so forth, that through evolution are just kind of leftover bits and bobs and, body parts that are being used in different ways over time as our diets change, as our bodies evolve, as our environments change, as our habitats. So they don't really know much about this pineal gland, what it was. I'll tell you what we do know about it. It's an endocrine gland, which means it secretes hormones directly into the bloodstream. And most vertebrates have one. Vertebrates, if we remember from school biology, animals that have a backbone. So most vertebrates have this pineal gland. The pineal gland produces melanin, which is crucial for our sleep pattern and for seasonal cycle. It's something that, for example, they will often give to people that have like ADHD or autism and stuff like that to help with sleep cycles if they struggle with their sleep cycles. And it's called pineal gland purely so that I act like an idiot every time I say it, but also because it looks like a pine cone.
Right.
So that's why it's called pineal gland. Oh, I hope I'm saying, what if it's pronounced pineal?
Well, it don't matter, does it? You know what you mean.
And a pineal. Hey, Google, how do you pronounce pineal gland?
That's pronounced pineal gland.
Pineal. Pineal. Okay. The pineal gland, most biologists at this point in time, supposedly, believe that the pineal gland is an atrophied photoreceptor, meaning it's basically what my dragon has his third eye for.
You've just blown my mind, Dee.
Meaning it's something that is used to detect light and heat. Literally, what my dragon uses his third eye, which is very visible on the back of his head, on the top of his head. So many biologists think that it's one of these, an atrophied one, meaning we don't need it, use it anymore. And through evolution, it's just sunk into our brain and it's still there, like our appendix.
I think we do need it though, don't we?
It sounds like it would be useful, right?
I think it'd be very useful, but I think there is a definite argument. There's people suffer from like SAD, the seasonal adjustment disorder, and certainly we get feelings related to when it's night time and when it's daytime, and when the clocks change we get all kind of freaked out, even though it's just an hour.
Exactly. Affected by the full moon, which a lot of people think is because of the light of the full moon.
Right.
Yeah, I know. It just sounds like, okay, well, maybe we don't need it for survival anymore, but we could have just still kept it as a luxury feature, right? What does this mean, though, in terms of intuition and so forth? Descartes, who we already established hurts my brain, thought that the human pineal gland was the principal seat of the soul. So now we're going from it being an atrophied photoreceptor to being the seat of the soul. And then again, there was loads more stuff to do with biology that I just couldn't go into because my level of knowledge is very superficial. But it is the size of a grain of rice. So fucking tiny. Tiny. The thing we are talking about is tiny. And it is still linked to our blood system. So it has a blood supply and it still secretes this melanin into our blood.
Well, it's doing something then. It must be needed.
Oh, fuck. Is it melanin or melatonin? Melatonin. When I said before melanin, I meant melatonin. And melatonin has a number of functions. Most importantly is that it modulates our sleep patterns and it helps with ADHD and other neurodiverse situations that can affect your energy and your sleep pattern. And melatonin production is stimulated by darkness and inhibited by light.
It definitely needed then.
Yeah, so this is why you have your like circadian pattern, sleep pattern. You know why it is more difficult to sleep in the light and in the daylight than it is at night. It's because in the darkness we stop producing melatonin, and in the day we produce more of it so that we have energy and we feel awake.
Right.
Now we're going to go on to calcification of the pineal gland, because the spiritual folk on Facebook in the groups, they seem very concerned about calcification of the pineal gland. Apparently, this is quite common in young adults, and it inhibits the production of melatonin. So again, it stops producing melatonin, which is necessary. It's necessary for our sleep patterns. But apparently, calcification of the pineal gland, there's no conclusive evidence that that in itself affects sleep. And 40% of American teens have a calcified pineal gland. So it's really common, is my point. It's really common for your pineal gland to be calcified. And there's no scientific evidence that I could find that this affects your sleep or anything. But also scientists are admitting that they still don't know very much about what this point of this pineal gland even is, or why calcification of the pineal gland even happens.
Right. And I wonder if those people that are calcified have got interrupted sleep patterns. I hope somebody asked them.
Well, it says that there's no conclusive evidence that it affects their sleep, but then at the same time, they're saying, well, we don't know why this happens. So yeah, still jury's out, right? They have a couple of theories about why your pineal gland might become calcified, and that's metabolic activity. So one theory is that the more active your pineal gland is, the higher the chance of it calcifying. Weird. And then the other theory is that maybe chronic conditions affect it. So if you've got certain chronic conditions, medical conditions, you're more likely to have calcified pineal gland. Calcification of the gland also increases your likelihood of developing certain chronic conditions. So if you've got a calcified pineal gland, you might be more likely to have migraines, develop Alzheimer's disease, and schizophrenia.
Wow.
But again, this is something that is super early days in the understanding of the pineal gland. Calcification of the pineal gland, though, apparently, even though they've just said that it doesn't affect sleep patterns, can increase insomnia and can lead to migraines, which, if you've ever had a migraine, is no fucking joke, is it?
Shocking.
But then again, another study has found that there's no relationship between the size of your pineal gland, whether it's calcified, and sleeping problems. What I'm going to take from this is that a pinch of salt with any sort of theories on the pineal gland, because it just sounds like it's so early days and so little understanding about what it even is, let alone what it does and what any abnormalities in it might cause. So really good that they seem to be looking into it. But
fascinating is that.
Yeah. So there are some theories about how to decalcify your pineal gland. And when I was reading these, I was like, so this is where a lot of the conspiracies come from in the spiritual world. Because both you and I will count ourselves as spiritual, right?
Yeah.
But we also think that there are a lot of batshit ideas out there.
I do. Yeah.
Some of these crazy theories are worrying, especially when they might influence someone's health.
I think it's when they influence someone to the detriment and manipulate. That's where I draw the line. And
when they ignore scientific evidence.
Right.
Yeah. So one way to decalcify your pineal gland, bear in mind that we don't even know if a calcified pineal gland is good or bad. Avoid excess fluoride.
Right.
So you know how there's been a lot of uproar, in particular the States. I feel like they always go extra on these things. A lot of uproar about how much fluoride is put in toothpastes and tap water.
Okay.
It's put in there to help with teeth, the development of teeth and bones and so forth. But there's a lot of uproar against it about it basically being poisonous and blah, 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 and apparently calcifying your pineal gland. Other people, I would agree with one argument, perhaps, that, it should be your choice what you put in your body.
What you consume, yeah.
One other way to reduce your pineal gland getting calcified is to reduce your exposure to electromagnetic fields, EMFs. It says here that they don't directly contribute to calcification, but there is some research that suggests excessive exposure may affect the pineal gland and limit its ability to produce melatonin. Gadgets like cell phones, microwaves, Wi-Fi routers, TVs, smart meters, and computer screens are common sources of EMFs, of electromagnetic field.
Right.
So again, we're saying like maybe some studies.
And a lot of talk about not having your mobile in your bedroom because of the blue light and things like that. So yeah.
I mean, these are not new theories, right? Like we've always heard that you got to be careful. I remember my mom saying, don't stand in front of the microwave.
Oh God, when you first had them when we were younger,
right?
You thought that you were going to be electrified,
yeah, or get some kind of radiation and grow hairy eyeballs or whatever. So
don't look at it. It used to be, don't look at the light when the microwave's on.
Exactly. And now it's like, 5G is gonna do whatever. So people are always scared of this, and I'm going to say a lot of the fear is because we don't fully understand how cell phones work, mobile phone works, and microwaves and whatever. So it's always a little bit scary when we don't know. And it also makes us easier to manipulate because you can tell me a microwave will make me grow hairy hands and I don't have the evidence to, or the knowledge to tell you no, because I don't know how a microwave works.
True.
Okay, so the other tip is to create an environment that promotes the proper functioning of the pineal gland. Getting high quality sleep every night is crucial for optimal functioning. I mean, that I agree with 100%.
For everything. Mm.
Oh, and like you just said, one factor that affects your sleep quality is blue light. It suppresses the production of melatonin for up to 4 hours.
Right. Now, you see, I fall asleep I put some on my Netflix on my phone, but I don't watch it, and I put it on the very, very quietest, so it's only just audible. And it helps me to fall asleep. So I figure that it helps me.
Yeah, but who knows what your sleep would be without it? Or maybe you're watching something that's very green.
Oh,
on the
no.
screen?
I just put cookery programs on. I know this subliminal thing. I don't want any messages going in.
Yeah. Well, apparently green light, on the other hand, promotes sleep. So as such, you have to minimize your exposure to blue light by getting rid of junk light in your home. Junk light. Isn't that
Junk
a
light?
funny idea? It may help to do away with LEDs and replace them with halogens or traditional bulbs. And when you go to sleep, your bedroom should be as dark as possible. I mean, I kind of agree with most of that. I think it definitely affects my sleep, having different kinds of light, and yeah, whether that's to do with the pineal gland or just because I don't know. And then also, final tip to decalcify your pineal gland is indirect sun exposure. Your eyes need indirect sunlight exposure to function correctly. Both the sun and darkness activate the functions of the pineal gland. Remember, we said that when it's dark, you stop producing melatonin so that you can sleep. And when it's light, you produce more. So and apparently you can also get tumors on your pineal gland. So now that's kind of scary. And those that suffer from insomnia often have a reduced size of pineal gland.
Because they're not producing enough of the hormone that they need.
So I just want to finish on gut instinct, because we talked about that gut feeling, the gut instinct, and how it's linked with the solar plexus chakra. Yeah, we talked about the third eye chakra, which is...
so it's not this solar plexus?
Yeah, no, the solar plexus one. If you think you've got the root at the bottom of the base of your spine, then moving up one, you've got the sacral.
Yeah.
Which is kind of your lady parts, reproductive area, your creativity and so forth. Then one up is the solar plexus chakra, which is the one that is kind of your intuition in a sense, your gut instinct, your gut feeling. We've all had it. And sometimes it's literally a feeling in your gut, like, right? Don't like that. Or I do love that. Things that get in the way of using your gut instinct and your solar plexus chakra are things like overthinking. Another thing that gets in the way of us using our gut instinct, our intuition, is the shoulds, shoulda, woulda, couldas, what we think we should do, and we should be polite to strangers and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, no, if you've got like that eek, then run. Yeah. So better to be rude than to be dead. You know what I mean?
In those cases. And that's what you tell the kids all the time. That's what we do. You don't need to worry about being rude. You be rude and get out.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Prejudices and unconscious biases, positive and negative, might influence whether you ignore your instincts or not, your gut. A loved one's or an authority figure's needs, wants, opinions, advice, so being swayed by people's opinions, and by what society wants and whatever. When you badly want something, so we talked about confirmation bias as well. So you see things, you only look at or listen to or hear the things that confirm what you already want to think or believe. Yes. And previous trauma, abuse in childhood might totally affect how we view the world, obviously.
It may have skewed a lot of your thoughts on things. Yeah.
So if you are into your chakras and you want to develop your intuition, it's for sure the third eye chakra and the solar plexus one that you should meditate on, do work around and so forth. So I'm going to leave you with 4 tips on how to cultivate your intuition.
Yay. Go for it.
Step 1, slow down and clear your mind. This one is so fucking hard to do because we are not used to slowing down and clearing our mind. We try everything we can to stay busy, to ignore our thoughts and blah, 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 right? And if you think that you are not like that, why do you think you watch so much TV and so forth? Like, we don't like being alone with a still mind because we don't like our thoughts interrupting our lives. Yeah. So slow down, clear your mind, notice the sensations in your body, focus on you.
Yeah.
And take action. So really go into like a reflective state and a contemplative, meditative state before you make decisions and so forth. And then you're more likely to be acting or at least listening to your intuition as well as your conscious mind. That was my little deep dive into intuition. But like I said, it just kept on coming up on the different episodes. What is a psychic ability? What makes you, are people actually psychic or are they just super intuitive? And what does that mean? And how much is learned and how much is just your senses or your perception or your rationale? So I still don't know the answer. I think it's all a combination of all of them. And like I said, that there's some sort of spectrum. Some people use our rational brain more. Some of us use our senses more. Some of us just are more in tune with our gut reactions.
I agree. And I think maybe people who call themselves psychic, or they've used that word, they may not even realize that they're just hyper intuitive.
Exactly. I want to finish on one last exercise, and it's called Shackles On and Shackles Off.
Okay.
By Mary Beck. Martha or Mary Beck. I've got her book over there, so I'm looking, but I can't see it. And she's amazing. She writes about finding your way so that you're happy, so forth. But her exercise that always sticks with me is called Shackles On, Shackles Off. Okay. And I think it's a really useful way in figuring out when our body is trying to tell us something. And being more aware of that so that we listen to our body's reaction to things. So I'm going to make you go through this exercise. Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All of you listening at home, try this as well. First, we are going to think about a situation where you were desperately unhappy, where you felt unheard, where you were being hurt, where you felt trapped, where you felt unwell, where you really just were so desperately unhappy and wanted to escape. So really put yourself in that place. I know it's unpleasant, but what is your body doing? Normally I'd make you sit with this emotion a little bit longer, but I feel bad, so I'm not going to. What is your body doing when you think about this? Have you had any physiological response to that?
I'm tensing up. I'm tensing.
What I find is I get tense, my shoulders hunch over, I'm normally crouching over, I'm going almost like I could feel myself going into fetal position, the protective pose.
Yeah.
Okay, so that is how your body reacts when you've got shackles on. Pay attention to when your body feels like that, because your body's trying to tell you, I'm unhappy with this situation. It's physically telling you, I don't like this mental state that you're in.
Yeah.
Which is quite special, isn't it? That body mind link again, right?
Yeah, without thinking about it, your body's just twisting up, isn't it?
Protecting itself, protecting you, telling you, I'm not happy with this, get out.
Yeah.
Now, I want you to think about a moment in time where you were just so free, so happy. You were with your loved ones, or you're doing something that you absolutely love. Maybe you're running on a beach, or maybe you're having, Sunday roast with your family, or playing with the dog, but just a time where you are just in your element, doing one of those things where you lose track of time because you're so in the moment.
Yeah.
That is your shackles off state of being.
Yeah.
And what has your body done when you were going into that state?
It relaxes more. My face feels soft.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Again, you might find that your shoulders are back again. You're coming out of that fetal position.
Yeah.
You're less tense, you're relaxed. You said even your face is relaxed.
Your face feels like it relaxes, doesn't it?
So how interesting. So when you've got shackles on, even your face gets tense, right?
Yes.
So that is your body telling you, oh, I like this state of mind.
Yeah.
I'm getting good feelings from this. So I think that's a useful exercise in this intuition episode. I'd make people do that exercise in different retreats and workshops to sort of try to train them a little bit better to pick up their own responses to things. Because sometimes we don't question, or we're not self-aware enough to understand. And if you start realizing, oh my God, my shoulders are hunched over. Why? Oh, because I'm actually working for someone I don't want to work with. Oh, I didn't really realize that. Okay. So it's kind of a really good way to start thinking about your intuition and how your body tries to send you messages that we have to get better at picking up on, I want you, next time you feel yourself getting tense, hunched over, realize that this is my body telling me I'm in shackles on mode and I'm not happy and I want to get to shackles off mode.
So do something.
Yeah,
do something
exactly.
about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, Dee. That was really nice. Yeah, you've left me with shackles off, so I feel.
Yeah,
lovely.
I always end with shackles off. I'm not going to leave you in that traumatized state of being in fetal position, crying. Bye. So shackles off, shackles on. Always good to remind yourself of those little signs that your body tells you as well.
Yeah.
You can be intuitive about your own self, right? So we're going to have you back again next week
Yes.
with your topic, which isn't a surprise because I make my guests share it with me to make sure that there's no duplication. But you're going to be talking about fairies and fairy folk and
I am.
what they are and where they came from, et cetera, et cetera. So super excited. That came out of the last episode we did together on cunning folk.
Yes, it did, didn't it?
Fantastic. All right. Well, thank you so much for recording with me. And thank you
you're
all for
welcome. It's
listening.
lovely. And thank you so much, Dee. It was really interesting.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.
If you want lots more fun, moon info, and all things spiritual, plus our merch shop, please visit our website, wenewthemoon.co.uk. And if you want even more, head over to our Patreon page, patreon.com/wenewthemoon, and check out some of our bonus content. We're also on Facebook and Instagram at we.new.the.moon, and we're also on Twitter at wenewthemoon1. See you next time!